Welcome everybody to the session this morning. We wanted to start with the acknowledgement of country. That's how we do it here in Australia. It's really honouring that this is actually the land on the Wiradjuri people. I'm really conscious. My name is Cherie Johnson and I'm a Gomeroi person from northwest New South Wales. And I'm also an entrepreneur, so we come with our ancestors. I really acknowledge the people who call this place home, that represent many different Aboriginal countries from around Australia and also walk with that wisdom and grace. I acknowledge the Aboriginal people in the room and all the countries where you come and from your communities and your people that you speak on behalf of and honour. Here we have had the most beautiful breeding season of whales just come through. And it's really interesting in this space. There's a lot of community asking for things to be heard as people, to be seen as community groups. So we just wanted to start today with that in the first and the foremost. We're going to be talking about the intersection between science and spirituality, and a lot of the talks, especially that I'll be having, will be linking to this. So thank you, Christina.
Thank you, Cherie. We're going to get the panel to introduce themselves in a minute. Everybody has a bio that is a mile long, so please read it. They are just amazing people from different fields that we have on this panel. We're blessed to have on this panel. I would like to start with a question to the audience because it may completely rewrite what we have prepared to say to you. But can I ask a couple of you, why are you here? Why have you chosen this panel? So if I can just get a couple of hands up. Yes?
We are going through a time where there is this convergence happening, like on a consciousness level, where like all the evolution in terms of our thoughts and what we are manifesting is driven by our spirituality, and it's also dictating how technology is moving.
You can't hear. I'm going to give you my microphone and then I'm going to take two more. So if you just pass the mic backwards, but if you can say that into the microphone so that everybody at the back can hear, and then we'll just pass the mic back and then we'll start the session.
Thank you. So we are going through this interesting time when there is a convergence happening between science and spirituality in a way that like our thoughts are coming from a cosmic level, and people are quite attuned to their souls when they are manifesting their life and evolving. And a lot of the collaboration in technology globally is happening simultaneously across the world, and an idea or a thought has to come when it has to come. So whether we take it at a local level or not, the consciousness is really non-local and manifesting itself.
Thank you. If you could pass the microphone behind you.
Yeah. Thank you. My name is Sean Richards. I believe human beings ourselves, we are spirit beings, and entrepreneurship is one of the core essence of humanity. And I believe to maximize the potential of entrepreneurship, innovation, and even sustainability, we need to tap into that core of spirituality.
Thank you. One more behind you. Is it? Yeah.
Thank you. I'm Ranjali, a delegate from Iraq. I'm a filmmaker, so the development of filmmaking is changing. And we need AI for the studios. Actually, it is killing the job opportunities for some of the crew, but it's increasing the quality, and it makes the filmmaking development faster for producing a film, and especially in VFX side.
Thank you very much. Okay, so we'll just collect the microphone, please. Thank you so much. Over to you, John.
Oh, righto. Okay. We're going to get the panellists to introduce themselves in just a minute, just very quickly and briefly, so you've got some context. I might start on the left and just go left to right. Well, my left to right. So, Cherie, you want to go start with you?
Sure. Gomeroi person from northwest New South Wales. I'm an educator, research, entrepreneur for over 13 years, and I'm really interested in how we can learn from our humanity and our essence of who we are and who we're taught to be. Even my son's here today, so you can't be what you can't see. And that's how we do community. So that's who I am.
Great, thank you. So I myself mostly know, I wear multiple hats. I'm mostly known for my work with TEDx Melbourne, but I get to meet with scientists, researchers, philanthropists, philosophers, heads of state, and people on the ground with all sorts of worldviews and experiences around their own perception about what the world is and what the world is about. And I want to sort of share some of that insight with you today.
My name is Kumar Parakala. I'm president of a company called GHD Digital. We're part of a global group, GHD. And we focus on digital transformation, helping companies go through digital transformation. And of that, AI is a very important component. Innovation enabled by AI and other technologies is also a very important component. AI and innovation are interlinked. And today's exciting conversation is about spirituality. So I'm hoping to interlink AI innovation with spirituality, and very excited to participate in this forum.
Thank you. And I'm going to borrow Kumar's line from the session before. There's plenty of seats down the front. If anybody would like to come and sit, please feel free to stand at the back if you want to, but we know who the naughty people in the room are. So my background is I work in innovation and I work with executive, and we're finding more and more that if we don't converge body, mind, heart and soul in leadership training, then there's a deficit in the culture of an organisation. And I'd like to use the analogy of a tree. So a tree for me, and I'm thinking of the big majestic trees, has very deep roots, goes into the earth, has systems and processes to align its growth, its physical growth, knows where it's going, digs deep, goes into history, and with a tree we can tell how old a tree is through barking, etc. Not the kind my dog does when there's a stranger at the front door. And then if we go upwards, its branches are reaching out and it's curious and it's feeding and it's oxygenating and it's giving us oxygen. So it's this shared conversation between the tree and its environment. And I believe that is how we're going to progress forward in body, mind, heart and soul with leadership.
Great, brilliant. So we have a number of terms that we wanted to define up front based on the topic and base our conversation around that, because otherwise you could have all sorts of definitions of what spirituality might be, for example. So the masterclass part of it, I was given the term one-directional lecture from global experts, and I'm not terribly keen on that term. I don't want it to be one-directional. I don't want it to be, define an expert. Anyway, but what we want this to be is interactive. So we're going to have some conversation. We're going to encourage you to interact with us in a moment, but I just wanted to define that up front. And then for the word of science, which is also in the title, I took the Oxford Dictionary definition. So it's very literal. The systemic study of structure and behaviour of the physical and natural world through observation, experimentation, and the testing of theories against the evidence obtained. So I'll just hand back to Christina about the next part.
So I'm doing spirituality and metaphysics. So spirituality for me is recognising that there's an essence bigger than ourselves, whether we know what it is or not, how we define it, an energy source, a god, dependent on religion, etc. But this is not a religious debate, so we're not going to actually get into that. So religion is a component of it, but the spirituality is the recognition of an essence that's bigger than ourselves. And metaphysics, so has anyone seen My Big Fat Greek Wedding? Yeah? Okay, so I'm going to go metaphysika, because I went to Greek school for an awful long time to be able to say that. So meta means after, so after, physika is the real. So you might say to somebody in a Greek conversation, physiko, and they go, yeah, like, is that the truth? Is that real? So it's after the real is what we're talking about with metaphysics. So there's three core elements and branches of metaphysics. So they are ontology, natural theology, and universal science. We're not going to go into all of this. What my hope is at the end of this session today, you have far more questions than we have answered, or even, if we can stimulate the conversation so that you then go out and have the conversation, then that is job well done for this session.
Great. My session was around past, present, and future, which, Chris, I know your comment just now, our ways of knowing, being, and doing is definitely interlinked to this. So in acknowledgements and welcomes to country, so a welcome to country is done by descendant from place. An acknowledgement can be done by anybody. And it's recognising those who have gone before you, not because they're old, but because they've gone before. So we have to remember what they stood for, what they've carved out for us, our humanity of the core of who we are. Also recognising the people who are with us today, because we are in the present, but we're also part of that link of the chain. It's very important. And also speaking on behalf of the young people who haven't yet learnt to articulate their words or yet haven't been born. So for us in community, past, present, future is interlinked, is intertwined, and it's all now. We're very community centric. We're very principle above personality. So that's very important. And for Aboriginal people, and also I was looking at time, so that's that whole thing of, for Aboriginal people, we don't think of time as a to be dictated at, it's 2 o'clock, therefore. It's more like it's a time of, it's a season of, and we're talking about that season of AI here today. So it's very, very interesting. So the interesting thing about time for us is it's all at once and it's all relevant, and it has causality in the present, because you do reflect on the past and on the future. And I was just reminded, I was talking to Christina about this, is I've had some of these amazing experiences, and I hope you get to have the opportunity in your life to have them as well, where I'm frozen in a bubble of time and I have no concept of it. And I have danced and not heard the voice leave my throat. And I have... my feet have hit the ground, but I actually haven't feel them hit the ground, but I'm kicking up the dirt and I'm surrounded and held completely in awe, and then don't realise, thinking it might have been 10 or 15 minutes, and I completely lost concept of time, and it's actually hours and hours and hours into the early hours of the morning, and we have that experience. So for us as Aboriginal people, that moment of reprieve can also come opposite ways, sometimes in a 10 minutes of connecting with country and you feeling like that refresh, that it's actually been days or hours. Yeah, so it's quite beautiful.
Thank you. And Kumar for the final definition, and then we're going to, go from there.
Okay. Artificial intelligence, which everyone might have heard by this time, refers to simulation of human intelligence in machines that are programmed to think and learn like humans. It's an interdisciplinary field of computer science that encompasses machine learning, natural language processing, vision, and robotics. AI enables machines to perceive, reason, learn, and problem solve like human beings, thus allowing them to typically have some aspects of human intelligence. Human intelligence is vast. We can't even measure how intelligent human beings are, but machines can mimic a small portion of that human intelligence. There are two types of AI, narrow AI and generative AI. Narrow AI is the weaker type of AI that we have known for more than a decade now, where the computers do certain tasks that you ask them to, and that is through a repetition of tasks and whatever. But generative AI is, as you engage with the machines, they learn. And they build their own intelligence. That's generative AI. And that is what is causing this global buzz. We are at this crossroads of the next revolution for humankind. And that is, through AI, our lives will be transformed forever over the next, not 10 years, over the next 24 to 36 months. This is on our doorstep. This is going to impact us. And we just need to figure out what that means for our well-being, our spirituality, and our work and everything else. Thank you. Thank you.
What's interesting with technology and well-being, and there's a lot of people talking about social media, and especially automated social media. They're all bots, according to Elon. They're affecting our mental health. And so we might continue in that domain with Kumar and his thoughts around that.
Okay, thank you. I'll just, ideas come to me freely when I'm standing.
Go for it.
All right, so I think it's very timely for us to explore AIs that is so powerful. That is, as I mentioned, it's like fire. You can cook your food, keep yourself warm, or if you're not careful, it can burn your house. It's so powerful, okay? So what does it mean? And between our panel members, we had a bit of a discussion, and we said, okay, AI can actually play a significant role in the human well-being. And what does AI do? AI gives us the ability to analyze vast amounts of data, which is not humanly possible, detect patterns, and then looking at those patterns, analyzing those patterns, we can then enhance various aspects of our life, such as physical health, mental health, and overall quality of life. We are, as professionals and people in this society, are facing unprecedented amount of stress and challenges due to the forces that are acting upon us, whether it is the pandemic that we are coming out, we still have instances of pandemic going on, whether it is the global economy, whether it's the war, whether it's infrastructure, resilience, whatever, you name it. We are all, as human beings, the society, going through a huge amount of stress, and we're all trying to adapt. In my view, in a positive sense, AI can actually help us better adapt with these changing world scenarios. So there are specific areas which AI can help. It can allow us to get more information and more resources to look at our well-being. And I see spirituality as an important part of mental well-being as well. It's a personal belief. So information, resources. It could allow us to be more, it can help us to be more mindful and help us the meditation practices. If we want to think about meditation as one of the ways of improving mental well-being. It can help us to engage with virtual communities who may have similar set of beliefs. It can provide, if you have the right kind and the ethical data, it can provide some spiritual guidance. I strongly believe spirituality is a personal and subjective experience. And then again, what kind of spirituality and spiritual guidance you're seeking is dependent upon who you are and what you're seeking. It's not, there's no one common answer. So spirituality is very individualistic. And for people who are engaging in various well-being rituals and practices, AI can help them become better at those. Having said that, I've done a little bit of work on the topic of spirituality, AI, innovation. Beliefs appear to be having beliefs is a prerequisite to be a spiritual person or to have a spiritual angle. For that, one needs to believe that technology and tools can help. If you don't believe technology tools can help, they can't help you. If you think they can help you. So it's as simple as that. Digital media enhances multi-modal and multi-directional forms of perception. Our temporal lobe sensitivity can be increased through this perception of digital media. When we are reading these things, Facebook, whatever, our frontal lobe is actively engaged and we are getting stimulated. For me, the convergence is, which is the topic, the digital realm and the spiritual realm are both virtual. They're all happening in our mind. So therefore, there is that convergence. And in very much like the digital world in AI, you see a lot of hallucinations. In spiritual world too, you can have hallucinations. So on that note, I do feel that AI, especially generative AI can add a huge value, can increase the potential of people's well-being, mental, physical, and overall quality of life, including spirituality. Thank you.
Brilliant. We might move on to Cherie.
Thank you. Yes. So the thoughts that I was having around this space is, what does this look like in my particular world, in my particular business? And often with the invention and the adoption of AI is, I constantly am thinking of, just because I could doesn't mean I should. And where does the ethical line draw and develop in the work that I do? And I really wanted to talk to about how often when I'm not sure of an answer, where I get my answers from, and it's not me personally, it's lots of people have this experience from lots of different community groups and whatnot. So for us, in community, we think of that time as interlinked, and sometimes the answers that you seek come through nature and come through community in lots of different ways. And how I see this showing up in my community is when I'm teaching somebody a practice for the first time, a cultural practice, and it just flows from them. And some people call it a cellular memory, and we call it a blood memory. In particular, I'm a weaver, so we use the weaving technique of going into your frontal lobe to using that as a form of meditation, and you're using the weaving as a methodology, but really it's just the conversation starter for that yarning situation and talking governance and ethics, really. And all of these pauses give us that beautiful refreshing, like I mentioned before. But I really wanted to talk about that play between science and spirituality, and how as we're diving into some areas, such as, the times of the dreaming, we call our time of creation the time of the dreaming. And a lot of these stories are passed off as fables or mythology or simple little basic stories. And it's really interesting the more you dive into them and you have aha moments, because you actually have a penny drop, and you realise how actually deep some of these stories really, really are the more you go into them. And you don't have that experience until you have that experience. You don't know what you don't know until you know what you don't know. And I actually wanted to talk about fire, which is interesting because that's come up today. There was a topic, do I talk about the fish or the fire? But anyway, I'm going to go with the fire. So in the Western, we think of it as bad, that it's a destroyer. But for us as community, we call it something of beauty. Because when we utilise fire as a tool, we do a thing called a cold burn. And the community talk about fire dancing over country. And what we do is we mosaic burn. So we burn a bit here, then a bit over there, and a bit over there. So there's these natural walls in between fuel that can actually be burnt. The whole idea is that when we do regular cold burn, it cleans up that leaf litter. But here in Australia, we also need heat to release some of our seed pods. So by utilising the fire, the seed pod opens and the seed falls into a bed of ash, so that seed isn't eaten by a bird. And that ash brings nutrients back to the ground. And then the rain comes and that seed grows. But then also when the new germination comes back, that is a place where the animals come back to be able to get their nice little green fresh snacks, which is quite beautiful. And it's wonderful for community because we know that that's where the animals will run away from the fire. So it's an easy place to get lizards from. My son's even experienced that. And then it's a great place where you can go back and hunt later. But we see it as a beautiful thing. And we also use fire as not only a physical cleansing for country, but also for ourselves. Here in Australia, we have a thing called a smoking ceremony. And when you go to the smoking ceremony and you welcome the smoke into your spirit, you can actually recognise the things that might be attached to you, and you can lovingly let them go. So it's actually a cleansing, not just for the physical landscape, but also for our bodies, which is really quite beautiful. So time and space is interlinked, definitely in community. And see, this is that conversation we had before about the digital going back to the space that you don't want it to be at. So for us, we are definitely spiritual-led, and that shows up in our entrepreneurial journey. I've been able to help about 15 people now start their own business as well, and it's always been led by that. It's just because an opportunity's presented itself and they wanted to be part of that solution for their community, and that's definitely been a part of that conversation. So what we are led by, though, is that ethics line of knowing, being and doing, and being mindful of those who've gone before us, and being that link in the chain so that other people can also be a part of the system as well. Not being the entire chain, but being the link that you're called to be, by you being that link and allows others to be that link as well.
Brilliant, thank you. I did not know you were a weaver. That was new to me, because while you were describing that, the first thing came to mind is the interweaving of the practice, the methodology, the person and the land.
Yeah. We've got these amazing programs, and they're all well-being programs using weaving as a methodology, but we'll talk later.
Yes, we'll have to talk later.
Yeah.
I'm learning more about Cherie as we go along. This is fantastic. Okay, look, my experience is somewhat more, what's the word? Intersectional, as opposed to something maybe more integral that Cherie talks about, in that I used to do a lot of martial arts when I was younger. And as part of martial arts is a good practice around meditation. And with your eyes closed, you become very aware of your physicality, you know, where your body's doing, what it feels, where the tension is, etc., etc., etc. But as you sort of spend more time in that meditative state, you start to blend into your world, your reality, to the point where you actually disappear. And what became to me at that point is, wow, there's a distinct difference between this meat body and who I am as a human being. And that our mind is really just a bundle of neurons and energy bouncing around in our brain, and other, if you want to go into theory mind, we'll talk about that later. But bundle of neurons going on in our mind, and that the moment you detach from that, that you are actually no longer your body. And the martial arts, when you move into that space, it's not a mind-body interaction, it's also an energetic one. You can actually sense the motion of someone or the intent of someone before they even move. And so you get this very high sensitivity around, and it becomes a bit of a dance between you and your fellow practitioner. And as the body ages and does what it does, the mind stays the same. It's immortal. And being a geek and type of guy that I am, thinking about Einstein and E and energy, and everyone knows E equals mc square, then what's the mc square? And so effectively, when that energy coalesces, the mass that is created from that moves from that, the mc square part, becomes our physical being. And what's really fascinating about the mc square part, when we start to dive into quantum, is that, and you know, I read this on a NASA website, but you know, it's everywhere. We can only, with our telescopes and with our microscopes and with what's in front of us, we can only measure 5% of what is actually out there, which means 95% we've got no idea. And so after all the wisdom of humanity to this point, we've got 95% to go, is mind-boggling to me. And so quantum is fascinating because it tries to explain the other 95%, dark energy, dark matter. And we're on this journey as a species to understand, well, what does that mean for us? What are we? Are we this material meat puppet, or are we something else beyond that? And that spiritual nature, that non-physical nature is thoroughly fascinating to me. And in the quantum, there's a postulation that, well, actually, just go back half a step. In order for a human to create something, we have to think something and then we create something. So the premise underneath quantum then is, okay, in order for us to exist, a consciousness must have needed to think of us. And what is that? And I suspect it's in the 95% somewhere. But I'm not a physicist. But it's interesting, right? Because then who are we, what we're about, what's energy, what's matter, what's even reality, become conversations where we actually end up with more questions than answers. And the more we study this, then it becomes fascinating. We have this wonderful convergence of understanding what spirit is, what humanity is, who I am in inverted commas, and what is our nature? What is our physical nature and purpose of our being? And that stuff is something that I constantly have, some rather involved conversations with the philosophers I get to speak to. And so it's a real privilege. But I might hit pause there, given time, and move on to our next speaker.
Thank you. And this really is a conversation that should be had with a glass of red, which is really a bit early for 10 o'clock in the morning, however, or white, whatever your preference is. So for me, I'd just like to point out something. So we have this exponential rise in technology at the moment, going crazy, as you heard from the previous panel as well. But we also have an exponential rise in meditation, yoga, breath work. And it's my belief, my observation, that the only way we're going to handle, or our brains are going to handle, which has been said to be the most amazing computer on the planet. I think we were talking yesterday, 100 billion cells in our brain. Plus, if you have a look at the brain and all the little neuron photos that come out with it, it kind of looks like this creepy thing that's pressing out, but it also looks like some of the weaves in a computer. So there is a reason why there is an exponential rise at the moment in practices of self-observation, meditation, etc. Because if we don't have that, we're going to forget how to live in what is called the present moment, which means that we will then potentially be totally overwhelmed by the technology that's happening. And I'd like to take us back again to mythology. So if you've seen My Big Fat Greek Wedding, then you know that everything comes from the Greek. So let's go back to mythology and Icarus. So all these things started in myth, in someone's imagination, somewhere from the ether, and before they existed, they didn't exist, which is part of this whole quantum theory. Before something exists, where is it? Where does it actually come from? And I believe that technology is showing us how all these interconnections now happen in our brain. We've got tools that allow different areas of our brain, when we have a thought, they light up. We can kind of investigate the different connections that are happening. But Icarus was a myth. The first record of it, I'm assuming that it goes back further, is the 8th century AD, about flying. So Icarus decided that he wanted to fly to the sun and created these wax wings, and off he went, and unfortunately had a meltdown, which is probably not really funny, but anyway. But you can laugh if you like. So after Icarus, move forward to the 15th century, and Leonardo da Vinci was drawing flight. He was drawing flight vehicles and how they might work. So then let's go up to 1903, and the Wright brothers actually created the first plane. Through persistence, through that entrepreneurial spirit of determination, resilience, fail fast, keep going, etc. So 1903, the first flight took off. How many people flew from overseas to here? Or flew from a different, So now look at the vehicles, look at the technology that's available to us now to bring us closer. And then you've got advances that were made with a Dreamliner. Different, let's alter the atmosphere in the plane. Let's figure out how to create the light and shade. Yes? A lot of those inspirations came from nature. Yeah, absolute. Yeah. Yes. Yeah.
I don't know many fixed-wing birds, but we won't go there.
And so the sight came from nature, so the example came from nature, and then the inspiration happened in a human with connections, and that's where the connections are actually showing up in some of the patterns. Totally, yes. So whether we use inspiration or whether we use connection as the word that does that, yes, absolutely true, and I very much agree with you. And nature, as Cherie has mentioned before, has been the fore of a lot of the conversations in spirituality. Where does all this come from? So if we then move forward to, flight is just one of the examples around where these connections happen from mythology. Deepak Chopra has done some amazing work, as has Dr. Joe Dispenza in this field around measuring energy levels. And if we have a look at what our bodies are made of, total energy, We're made of atoms, we're made of molecules. Then we go back to the history of if energy, according to science, has no beginning and no end, and energy, according to some religions, has no beginning and no end, where does that leave the energy in its progression and in its continuous state? So these are all the types of questions that we like to discuss and have the philosophical conversations around, matching up the potential for artificial intelligence, science, etc., to intersect with the spirituality and where we're going with all of that. I'd like to end my little session with a quote by Albert Einstein, bringing it back to time as well. So people like us who believe in physics know that the distinction between past, present and future is only a stubbornly persistent illusion. Time, in other words, he said, is an illusion. Many physicists since have shared this view that true reality is timeless. And if we go into the whole idea, I'm just quickly going to bring one thing around quantum in, and I am by no means a quantum expert. But at one point in time, we thought in the computer language, ones and zeros didn't coexist. Now we actually understand that ones and zeros, or it's been found that ones and zeros can coexist. And hence, the parallel to that is different time periods can coexist as well. So a lot of this stuff for me is totally mind-blowing, but it's really what we want to open the conversation with, to have with you now, and maybe it's a Q&A, but maybe it's a conversation, and maybe it's a sharing of knowledge. So can I have somebody from the audience who would like to start with a question or start with a comment, share some information around what this topic is and what it might mean to you?
While you're thinking about that, think about as AI gets smarter and has more sensors and more data and more awareness, as an AI becomes more self-aware and more sentient, would it actually become conscious? And so where does technology take us at that point? That's another thing to think about when we talk about technology and spirituality and being and purpose. But please go ahead.
Yeah, thank you it was really inspiring. So we know since the 1988 that philosophy, Descartes, think and then exist, it was not working anymore. So we have this question since back then in philosophy, I'm a philosopher and entrepreneurship, that why we have this disconnection between the head and the body. You never see a head walking alone, as you never see a body walking alone. We are together. So in that question, the human existence for me is never separate for the human actions and the human being. And my question is why this is important. I believe we are transitioning a new way of leadership, that if we don't have this transition leadership, we're going to keep come back to the same way that we do the things before. So I feel that we have to connect, and just because it's there, and just rethink and not separate the philosophers for the entrepreneurships and technologies is who I am. And I am everything, and is where I bring to my business. So I think the leadership is really important question. So in this time to put together the things again.
Yeah, I think your point is absolutely valid. Leadership is the foundation of everything that you're talking about. Our ability to think differently and challenge the status quo is the foundation for the humanity to progress. So for me, we need to entertain all these philosophical questions rather than being dismissive. Where spirituality and meditation or higher planes, thinking differently, they're all very important questions for the well-being of the humanity. So you're absolutely right. We need the right leaders, people with titles and large organizations, CEOs, a prime minister, president. They need not be the leaders. They are doing a job. So there will be an emergence of new type of leaders who are more holistic, more open, more willing to engage in this quest to find the answers. Yeah.
My question is, how do these questions relate to the future of innovation, to entrepreneurship, and what can we do as people who are in the innovation space with this?
We're all human beings. And we all want the best for not only ourselves, but the people around us. And I think, especially capitalism, can very quickly lose sight of that. And I would argue that entrepreneurship and business is the only mechanism that's going to drive that. It's the individuals who run those businesses. Governments, in theory, are supposed to create the frameworks for safety, but they're not designed to innovate. They're not designed, for a whole bunch of things. And I would argue that business is the leading force in that. And at the moment, especially with AI, it's the only force, which is somewhat worrying. But that's my worldview.
And my personal opinion on that is that in the world of entrepreneurship, often your idea, I call it moonshot. So we run a lot of moonshot workshops, ideation, whatever you want to call it, pie in the sky, whatever your terminology is. So for me, that moonshot springs from, and this is my total interpretation, springs from my soul. I have some kind of awakening that now I understand through some of the use of technological tools is my brain connecting a whole lot of experiences, conversations, etc. that it has. And so this springs out of my soul. I come up with something that I'm very passionate about. So then I move into the passion to make something happen, which for me comes from my heart. So far I've got the soul and my heart in an entrepreneurial journey that comes along with me, that gives me that drive and the resilience to keep going. My brain, my intellect, then helps me action. What are the actions that I need to take in order to make this happen? So my body, mind, heart, soul convergence for me as an entrepreneur is what makes me go forward. That's my total interpretation. Does anyone?
Yeah, I just wanted to add something to that as well. And back to your point about leadership, I feel like the change is coming and we're wanting leaders to have real wisdom and grace like times of old. And that's what's needed in a world where new content is coming at such a rapid pace. We're metabolizing thought and new concepts so quickly. My background's in education, so I taught in high schools for many years, and we can't teach kids today to be professionals in the 5 years that they leave because we don't know how to inform them. So how do you reckon with new information? How do you become a lifelong learner and all these sorts of things? And then just on the business topic, as an Aboriginal business owner, I didn't mean to be a business owner. I was quite happy doing life and doing other things, but it just happened. What's happening here in Australia is we have, and it's happening in a couple of other countries as well, is we have the Indigenous participation plan and the Aboriginal participation plan and the Indigenous participation policy, where companies are being asked to diversify their supply chain. And remember, there actually is an S in ESG. A lot of companies are very silent on that S, and there is some real accountability coming to that. So what's happening is, up until recently, there was a real push to have Aboriginal version of a particular business, a printer, a computer supplier, whatever it is that you do. I really believe that in the next couple of years, and what's happening is Indigenous businesses are going to create solutions to problems the world don't know we have yet. Going to create new content, new training packages, new service delivery. I don't even actually really know. And I'm really excited because we're right on the cusp of what is the world needs. People call me all the time and go, "Oh, Cherie, we need to do something. We need to do an Aboriginal something." And I'm like, "What?" And they're like, "Oh, I don't know." Clearly they want to tick a box because they want to get a government fund. Bless your soul if you've ever had that conversation. But I'm quite happy to say, I'm pretty sure your objective isn't that. You've actually got an issue. It should be on your risk management plan. You need to put this as part of your strategy. In actual fact, boards are looking at, we need to, what is our responsibility to our team and our shareholders and the like, but also what's the right thing to do. And more companies are thinking about that now. So we really need to be conscious about the decisions that we make today. And are you going to be, if you are in a leadership position or you're making decisions today, are you embarrassed to say that in front of your children? Are you going to be embarrassed to do that or say that in 5 or 10 years' time? So I feel like we need to just be a little bit reflective of that. And I wish more leaders would think that a little bit more as well.
I just wanted to add, we are now a $100 million company in revenues, and we're going to probably be valued around $500 million. We built this company, which was non-existent, in 5 years. Where did that energy and that thinking come from? People came together and we manifested this over the last 4 or 5 years. There are other organizations that are building billions of dollars of companies. How did iPhone and iPad and all this? So this human intelligence has got that energy, which comes from this convergence. Not everybody can do it. Okay, so if you are able to bring that convergence into your thinking and creativity, and some of these greatest inventors are also deeply spiritual, to the extent that some of them have actually said, I didn't have the solution, I went to bed and I dreamt about it and I came back and I created it. So the way the conscious and the subconscious mind works, creativity works, entrepreneurial flair works, they're all interconnected. And that is something nobody teaches us in the university. We need to build it ourselves. The greater that is, the greater is the potential to build entrepreneurial ventures.
Yeah. Question done.
Susie?
Thank you. Thank you. This is so fascinating, and I could spend days and nights with a glass of wine or a cup of tea. I'd love to. So in order for me to turn up to work, I need to have meaning. That's bringing my whole self, the reason I exist, and the change that I can impact for people and the planet. And somehow, I mean, when I got involved in GHD Digital 5 years ago, my kid said, Mum, you in digital? And I said, yes, because I have a purpose. How are we going to use what we have to make the maximum impact on making the world a better place, our natural world regenerate when we're seeing, really frequent and intense natural disasters happening, etc. So me coming to work every day, I've got to have that meaning happening for me and the purpose. And how do you see this then? I see this as maybe the next cultural shift as well happening in order to make us all more engaged in transforming for good. I know it's a catchphrase, but I just wonder about that.
So for me, we do a lot of work in culture as well, and there is. So again, I'll use a phrase Cherie just used: tick a box. So up until recently, it's been tick a box culture, tick a box purpose, tick a box, right? To the point where I went into, we did some work with a major accounting organisation, and I said, "Oh, vision, values, etc." And he went, "Hang on, they're here somewhere." As opposed to pre-COVID, I was blessed to go to a place in Las Vegas. Las Vegas and I do not get on. However, Zappos is based at Las Vegas. I walked through their amazing, absolutely amazing culture that I could spend the next 20 minutes talking about, but I won't. But please have a look at it if you don't know about the organisation. So purpose culture is truly coming into its own. It's been rhetoric for a long time, but it's almost like it's like it's like the early adopter syndrome, right? So people talk about it, and then some people get on the bandwagon, and then everyone goes, "Well, hang on a sec," and then you go, "There's real meaning in this. Like it means something to have people turn up to work in a positive mindset." The numbers are amazing. You have a group of people engaged in what you're doing. Your bottom line goes up. Yes. I've got one more thing to answer to that, and then I'm going to give you the mic and then give someone else the mic here. There is a reason we share 99.9% DNA, and that 0.1% difference is where your passion comes in. What is the unique gift from that 0.1% DNA that you all have to contribute to your organisations, to your families, to your communities? So going from that personal sense of purpose to the organisational sense of purpose is absolutely crucial, and that's where these feelings that we were talking about as well come in. So we'll let you make a comment, and then we'll go to you for a question, and then we might...
Just one comment from me though as well. Employees often ask us how to be an employer of choice, how to create cultural safety. I do a lot of work with boards around change management, and it's the old, culture eats strategy for breakfast every day. If you want the brightest minds coming out of university, whatnot, you need to allow these people to turn up as their authentic self. They shouldn't have to lie about what religion they are or how they identify with their pronouns or to reckon that I need to go home for ceremony for 2 weeks for whatever reason, somebody's wedding or somebody's funeral or something's going on. This is the stuff that's really important. And at the board level, we say we want diversity, we want different lenses to come in. We want women to be in leadership positions to be women, not to act like men. We want people to come and have children, some people not to have children, some people to be grandparents. You need that different lenses to be able to make the fabric of your organisation rich like a gorgeous tapestry as what brings us life. If we live a life completely of non-fiction, where is the beauty? We need to bring in that beauty. So thank you for that comment.
So a quick comment, then we'll go to a question. I think you have a comment.
Yes, my name is Ivan. I come from a background of being a software engineer, software engineering lecturer, and a multimedia artist. So I see a trend where this fear, apprehension, worship of AI and technology is leading us to a potential future where we will be connected to AI through the Internet of Bodies and Internet of Things. So there's something that technofuturists like Ray Kurzweil and the World Economic Forum have made note of. So I'm really glad to see Sherry here, because from my understanding with Aboriginal culture and other types of spirituality, there is the interconnectedness of us as people and of us with earth and us with things. So I posit that there is going to be a time when, as entrepreneurs, as people, we need to question and rethink what we value of ourselves as human beings, as spiritual persons, because there will come a time when perhaps we may have to choose between whether we want to be connected to AI or we want to remain connected with our spirituality, our inherent natural spirituality to each other and to Earth. So interested to hear from the panel and Cherie or anyone in the panel about my thoughts.
One thing I want to say to you, AI will challenge the human race to become more humane. So we got to lift our game as far as humanness is concerned. We think we are human right now. Right now, we are not that human. We fight with each other every single day. So humanness will be enhanced, and that is going to be the pinnacle of our society in terms of our evolution. So for me, AI will be the catalyst of human evolution.
Just quickly, I won't talk about him. A gentleman by the name of Mo Gordat, you may or may not have heard of him, has got an organisation, Solve for Happy. He says we need to be raising good humans. So if we're going to use AI for our benefit, we need to raise good humans. He was Google X, he's now Solve for Happy. He has an amazing story and some amazing information on the net to go and have a look at. Yes. Thank you for being patient.
Oh, no. Look, I've got a question about biology, but I first of all want to say thank you, and what a good tribe of people are in this room. I've recently joined a foundation, and we fund and look after, we focus on leadership for the greater good, and it's about purpose. So I feel like I've found people in this room that are genuine. Two adjectives that, when we talk about leadership characteristics, I think humility and awe. Like, to be in awe of this opportunity that we have, but a humility that we are these little zygote in the midst of it all. But my question's about biology, because if I think about Industry 4.0, they always calls it the convergence of technology, the physical and the biological world. So I'd be curious whether the panel, the potential of whether it's medical, infusions or some way that it can attract or be connected to our amygdala, our flight or fight response. What can we see about the biology part of Industry 4 with spirituality and the emotional side of who we are as humans?
Anyone want to take that?
I think we already do. There's technologies that measure our biology all the time that are connected to
But
sensors.
I'm meaning more. I'm talking about the stuff that, not just how we sleep. I'm meaning this idea of consciousness or of...
Yeah.
The next.
Yeah. What I want to say is we underestimate how powerful the brain is. Brain is the CEO of our body. And we haven't understood, in spite of all the research in the world, we haven't understood how our brain, but we understood a very small part of our brain. Our thoughts, conscious or unconscious, create chemical reactions in our body, which then lead to feelings. And whatever feelings we get, then that is what is determining our well-being. So to just answer your question, Jaisal, the biology is linked to thought. And if we can make sure the thought process is right, then the biology will take care of itself. Aligning that thought to biology and all those perspectives is the beginning to physical well-being as well as mental well-being. That's my belief. Yeah.
We're kind of out of time.
Yeah, but there's also the different measurements that we're making at the moment around, using virtual reality, augmented reality to help quadriplegics gain movement again in limbs. I've seen video of a woman with cerebral palsy. Actually, I was meant to have her at an event that we ran, and she had to have an operation, couldn't come. But she's actually reading with her eyes. She's creating music through an iPad that an Australian scientist has actually developed for her. Jess, yeah. And it was Dr. Jordan Nguyen. If you have a look at his work, amazing what they're doing. So it's all happening.
There's a lot of technology that measures blood, stool. Tom Oxley did a brain sensor for people who are quadriplegic to type into Twitter. Like, this stuff already exists, but it's just very, very, But it'll accelerate. Like, all this stuff within the next 10, 15 years, I don't think anyone can really predict it.
So we've got 1 minute 30 left. I'm going to ask each of the panellists for a very quick final thing that they would like you to think about. I would love you to all continue these conversations, family, friends, communities, workplaces, boardrooms, etc. Cherie, final comment.
I stay connected to country and my people. I'm spirit-led and I believe in humanity.
Be open-minded. Assume that everything you've learnt to this point is actually completely wrong, because in the next 20 years it probably will be. And then go back to clear thinking. So first principles, first order consequences, and second order consequences. Everything can be explained with those three principles. Absolutely everything. And that's how I choose to think.
My message is AI, spirituality, and innovation are all interlinked. So let's be very open about the possibilities of maximizing human potential by applying these three areas.
And mine is a word that I think I made up, but somebody else may have, because there's all this parallel consciousness as well. Humanovate. So in every innovation, let's put humanity first. Let's create the kind of humans that we want. Let's raise good humans. And good is a judgment word. So good, bad, who knows? What are the definitions of good and bad? That's a whole other discussion. But if we raise good humans, we don't need to fear technology, because we'll all be using it for good. Please thank the panel. Thank you for staying with us and being here.